If there's one thing I'm not good at, it's video games. I almost walked right in. And if there's another thing I'm not good at, it's hard video games. But for some reason, my dumbass decided to see what the deal about Ninja Gaiden was at the time of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black's release. I was expecting an incredibly frustrating and unfair experience, and it was, but much to my surprise, I enjoyed what I played. The whole character action game thing is pretty hit or miss to me, but this isn't just a typical character action game. This is Ninja Goddamn Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden Sigma starts off swinging with Ryu coming down looking like a rejected member of the Foot Clan. The first chapter is just great. It's not too tough and it's not too easy, but it allows you to get all the fundamentals down. I love the calm and serene autumn sky as it clashes with the brutality taking place during the stage. Within the first couple of minutes when I played this chapter, I knew I was gonna love this game. The combat in this game just clicked with me more than most action games did. It's simple enough for me to remember how to perform well, and it doesn't take much to look good in combat either. There are plenty of moments in the castle to keep you on your toes, like the appearance of the white ninjas and then the ambush near the roof. That part seriously scared me the first time I went through it. Fuck you, Itagaki, for that enemy placement in particular. Um, Hopefully there's no ninjas. Oh, ninja! Now, I suppose I should discuss the boss fights in this game. And in this chapter, you fight Mirai, who is apparently Ryu's uncle. Well, I hope he isn't secretly evil or something. His boss fight isn't too bad. The strategy revolves around hitting him with a short combo and then rolling back. A lot of the bosses in this game follow a similar strategy, so I tended to not really like the boss design in this game. The boss fights in this game are honestly more annoying, if anything, which is a huge disappointment. After the fight, we get a nice twist where it's revealed that this was all a part of Ryu's training. We also get introduced to Ayane, who is always nicely framed in some shots, and she basically does stuff. I gotta be honest with you, in terms of story for this game, I don't really give a shit. It's a roller coaster ride of testosterone pumping action with a side of cheesecake. It ain't Shakespeare and it ain't trying to be. In Chapter 2, we're informed that the village is under attack by a bunch of bad guys. The name of the village, by the way, is Hayabusa Village. I never thought Ryu had such a big ego on him to name an entire village after himself. The main village segment of this chapter is pretty good, and it reminds me of a lot of the first sections of Neo. There are, of course, different enemy types introduced here, including one that I find very obnoxious. One of them teleports and shoots you from afar, and while not as bad as future chapters, I find this type of enemy to be very annoying. For some reason, projectile enemies in this game have godly aim and manages to hit you no matter what. Another gameplay feature that's introduced here are the shops, and we get the best character in the franchise, Masamura, and I swear if he isn't playable in 4, I will riot. The amount of enemies really starts to pick up here, and thankfully you have been granted an ultimate ability in the form of Ninpo. I think on my first playthrough, I wasn't even sure how to activate it, which would have been nice for the upcoming segment that throws several enemies on horses at you. Yet another annoying group of enemies that thankfully don't show up very often, but after this you get to deal with a boss on a horse and some enemies on the side. There's also another boss in the form of Doku, which serves as our big bad of the game. He's literally just a guy in black samurai armor and purple flames. Okay, it's also a pretty lame fight where you're forced to lose. Apparently, this was introduced in the Sigma version, but I'd prefer if it would be left out if it was going to be this rushed. Oh, and Ryu dies as well and is reborn somehow. Here's where we get Ryu's main outfit for the game. Far better than his basic threads, but what I don't understand is why his arms are so exposed. Wouldn't it be more beneficial to have them covered up? You know, it kind of looks like an oriental version of a gimp. Chapter 3 might be one of my favorite chapters in the game. It stands out from the rest of the chapters as it's a very neat and compact blimp ride. It even has a calm opening to give the player a breather and look in the other rooms. Unlike the other two Ninja Gaiden games, this has more puzzles and searching for MacGuffins. I generally like the approach to the design. This chapter is like a taste of what's to come when we reach Tyron. Speaking of Tyron, the Vigorian troops aren't very happy with our arrival, as they send Eggman after us. I don't know why he doesn't enter the blimp in this chapter or tries to shoot the blimp down. He's kinda just standing on the top of the blimp for the whole chapter. Nothing else really stands out to me outside of the Gauntlet Room. In Sigma, there has been a new addition to these little spaces where you fight waves of enemies in order to receive some type of reward. I hate Gauntlet Rooms in games, and this is no exception. There is nothing fun about wailing away at enemies just to pad out playtime. Other than that, it's a really solid chapter. Chapter 4 opens up with Ryu doing the most extra shit on this power line. Huh, so that's why my internet's been so unstable while writing this. Anyways, this is where we get introduced to our main hub area, Tyron. I really love the architecture of this place. It looks modern and gothic at the same time. There are so many little secrets and areas to find, and it's legitimately fun to explore. For example, there's an alleyway before the end of the chapter, and if you wall run up to a ledge, you get a new projectile weapon, and then there's this creepy monolith of Team Ninja hovering above the ground. There are a couple weapons that you can pick up in this chapter, and one of my favorites is Lunar. It's just so satisfying to hit people when it sounds so damn good. It really sounds like you're laying it on your enemies when you hit them with this glorified pull cue. On top of dealing with Vigor's guards in this chapter, you'll be running into these black spider ninjas, and they are a real challenge compared to what we've been fighting so far. The AI is relentless, and I find them really fun to deal with, at least for the first couple encounters, but they do get annoying later on, especially because they like to spam exploding shuriken. At the end of the chapter, we get a little bit more plot and the introduction of Rachel. So you might have noticed by now, but Itagaki has a type for sure. If there's anything female in this game, they have a surefire chance it's gonna have some heaving bonkers. I mean, this is the guy who worked on Dead or Alive, so... Chapter 5 brings a new edition of Rachel chapters, which are exclusive to the Sigma version. All of them are fairly short and not really offensive in any way. Plus, Rachel isn't that bad to play as because her giant hammer has a lot of fun moves to it. The amount of back pain that this woman probably has is ridiculous. I spent the majority of this chapter fighting the gauntlet, which feels like it goes on forever, especially because the fiend enemies are some of my least favorite to fight. Maybe the gauntlets wouldn't be so bad if you didn't fight the same enemy type over and over again. The main objective of this chapter is to get into the monastery, and it's a beauty to behold once you gain access to it. The end of the chapter reveals some lore about the fiends, and this is just straight up Devilman. Chapter 6 is kinda boring as you basically just backtrack to the monastery as Ryu, but once you do, you get to fight this tentacle hentai creature that ends up voring Rachel. It's a really bad boss fight, but I just like to spam Flying Swallow over and over again, which is always satisfying to do. Chapter 7 is one of the longest chapters in the game, and it's also one of the best, outside of certain segments. I'll get to that later, though. For now, let's talk about what it does right. I really like that the monastery leads to this underground abyss. It's very large and foreboding the moment you step down into it. You can absolutely see the Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider inspiration in this level. You even have to run away from a boulder and collect a trapped item. Here we have to deal with these undead enemies in the game, and they're fine and good except for one exception. That being these goddamn archers. See, as you're trying to escape the abyss, you run into these three archers who are constantly shooting at you with such precise aim. Not only that, but if they hit you, they knock you down, and sometimes they send you all the way to the bottom of the pit. Even if you kill them, they end up respawning by the time that you climb up. This is followed up by another annoying platforming segment, and let me get this out of the way. The platforming in this game sucks. One reason is the camera is abysmal and never goes where you need. And the other reason is that Ryu hops around like a child with ADHD. The boss in this is a spectacle to behold, but it's pretty easy. Chapter 8, we switch back to Rachel, and the only thing of note that happens is the boss fight with Gamov. And it's not a very good boss fight. Chapter 9 is a decent chapter for me, but not one that I remember that well. I think I'm not really big on the Egyptian cave type of setting. They always seem so bland to me. To spice things up, I ended up using the Vigorian flail, which I always tend to forget about in my playthroughs. It's so fast and slices through enemies easily. It's actually quite enjoyable to use, and I also used it on the boss, which is reused from a previous chapter. Would it really be that hard to come up with another boss? I mean, come on. Once we exit the cave, we get into another boss fight in the form of Alma. I've never been able to figure out the fight strategy for this boss. I literally just spray and pray until she's dead. Chapter 10 is yet another chapter where we have to retrace our steps, but thankfully there's new things to do in Tyron as well. We get this great bombastic score on top of it. The soundtrack I forgot to mention in this game is absolutely heart-pounding. Ryo Kyoke nails the atmosphere and style of the game. I'm amazed by how diverse his music is for the game. Most of the chapter is the standard fighting waves of Vigorian troops before encountering the boss from Chapter 3 again, because why the fuck not? Now, Chapter 10 is followed up by one of the worst chapters in the entire game. Chapter 11 is absolute garbage. I hate everything about this chapter. The environments are bland industrial buildings with horrible segments. The worst one by far is the first building you enter that has a bunch of these aerial robots that continually spawn as you try to platform across trains. It is the lowest point of the game for me. And then we get the boss fights. You literally fight a tank in a helicopter. What is this, Metal Gear Solid? At least we get a nice CGI cutscene where Ryu blows up a train at the end of the chapter, though. Chapter 12 is another chapter I don't really care for. If I had one word to describe it, it would be tedious. It is a sewer section, but in the form of a very basic Zelda dungeon. The layout of the place is so annoying to navigate for me. There are parts that look really cool and visually pleasing, but it feels padded out. Look no further than the worm bosses. These are the worst bosses in the game for me. Their attacks are annoying, and you don't have much space to move around in, and it just takes way too long. It starts to feel like towards the later parts of the game, they might have been running out of ideas, or some things started to overstay their welcome. You do get a gnarly looking boss at the end of the chapter, though. Chapter 13 is really weird. It starts off really poorly with it being mostly a swimming section, and this is some of the most awkward swimming I've ever dealt with in a game. It becomes even more trivial when you get access to an oxygen tank later on in the level. After this segment, we are basically done swimming for the rest of the game. I get that this was supposed to be a pace breaker, but it's very poorly done. After all that swimming, we finally go toe-to-toe with Doku, and it's very underwhelming. It's another situation where you hit them a couple times and roll backwards. Chapter 14 is Rachel's final chapter, and boy does she go out with a whimper. You travel back to Hayabusa Village, beat up some guys, and then fail miserably fighting her two sisters. She once again gets captured after being free for one whole chapter. The other two Rachel chapters were a little bit more interesting than this one. Sure, you could tell that they were tacked on, but this one feels like a complete afterthought. Chapter 15 feels like a nice palate cleanser after some pretty bad chapters. The only really egregious thing that I can think of is the gauntlet at the beginning, and it's completely optional. The main part where you descend into a fire and ice cave is pretty cool. It's a simple concept, but one that's actually interesting to navigate. The music in this section is also one of my favorite tracks out of the entire game. It's like something out of Metroid Prime. The area kind of is designed similarly to the sewer section in 12, but not as bad. The two bosses aren't anything to write home about, but the dragon one is pretty cool, at least in concept. I love how after the fight you even get to walk over its corpse to get to the exit. That's seriously badass. Chapter 16 is when Ryu finally catches up to Rachel by going back to Hayabusa Village. We obtain the true dragon sword. By doing this, we basically make it all glowy now, because I didn't really see much of a difference in damage output at this point. The boss of this section is Alma, only this time it feels way more fair, and I honestly liked it a lot, probably because I got to spam Flying Swallow a bunch. Pretty meh chapter overall, though. Chapter 17 is actually a pretty cool chapter and has some creepy atmosphere to it. Most of it you spend in these linear corridors as you find key items. It works really well as you keep on your toes. You also get a huge amount of new enemies in this section, including the infamous Ghostfish. I wish that earlier parts of this game had this level of variety, because this is the only time in the game that we get to see some of these enemies. I found the flail to be very useful for this section to keep enemies at bay. You also get to fight the ghost of Doku, which is one of the easiest fights in the game, and I am horrible. Hilariously, after defeating the boss fight, Doku turns Ryu into a fiend, and it literally just makes him blue. I don't know why, but this made my side split into orbit when I saw this. Blue Ryu was certainly not something that I was expecting while playing this game. Chapter 18 is a behemoth of a chapter. The beginning isn't so bad as you have to ascend a tower. Unfortunately, this section is very boring because you fight these reject Digimon enemies that you've been fighting the whole game. Not sure why we don't get more variety here, but as we get to the top, we are met with a boss rush. First, you fight the Cthulhu demon thing, the third time, and the Yeti followed by the demon. After that, we get a pair of strange bosses that have pretty cool designs, but are technically rough as far as fight goes. It's brutal, man. Even though I was playing on baby hero mode, I could barely beat the final boss of this chapter. Chapter 19 is mercifully short, with a very awkward platforming section followed by the final boss. It's revealed that Mirai has been the one pulling the strings the whole time, and he decides to kill Gamov. This is the biggest bunch of bullshit that I think I've ever seen. I was actually surprised when the Mirai boss fight was only one phase, though. It's very underwhelming as a final boss, but the bosses aren't really this game's strong point in case you can't tell. It ends in the only way it can, with a cliche pitfall for the villain and our heroes walking away into the sunset. Also, Ryu gives Rachel the bluest pair of ovaries. What a dick. So that's Ninja Gaiden for you. I think after doing this retrospective, I found a lot more things I didn't really like about this game. It's got a whole lot of jank and things that don't age very well, but it's still really great. The combat is fun and challenging. The levels have a great art direction and are stylish. I'm going to try to cover every modern Ninja Gaiden game in future retrospectives, so if you'd like to see my playthroughs of them, please check out my second channel. If not, look forward to future retrospectives. I'll be trying to put them out at the beginning of the month for members' early access. For everyone else, they'll be coming at the end of the month. Thanks for watching.